Good afternoon. Okay, how many of you just still have a cell phone with actual keys on it? You want to come up here? No? Okay, how many of you have rented a DVD lately, like a physical one? Buying books in a bookstore? An actual bookstore? Without getting the coffee? No? Okay. How many of you have broadcasted anything on Meerkat or Periscope? Anyone still on Meerkat? No. Scary. Well, that's what I'm thrilled about. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm living. How we survive the tech storm. How new things are getting into our lives and changing our behavior, changing the way we do business. And I mean, I got all these wearables, like age-related. And I also got, of course, the wearable that rules them all, the iWatch. I'm not sure if it's a good idea, but I'm always trying out new things. And I mean, when I run to the bus in the morning, it updates my Facebook status saying that, oh, Nicklas is exercising, and posts it on Facebook. And this is, I don't know, I get a bit overwhelmed about this. But if you really want to be an early adopter today, you should let go of your wearables and go full implants. That's coming. You should let a drone walk your dog instead. And when I'm out traveling, I stay in touch with my family through a pair of virtual reality goggles, of course. The problem is that this is my youngest daughter, and she's the only one that can handle this without getting motion sickness. So, but we're getting there. We're getting there. It's interesting. It's happening, and there's like no way we can avoid all these new technologies that is like coming ahead, that's approaching us. And I will try today in this 15 minutes to put emerging technologies, into business context, to see how we should relate to this, when we should jump on a new technology, when we should try to leave an old technology behind, and how the business implications will have to change. We talked about earlier on how new business models are changing, and all these things combined, meaning that we have to take control of our own future, because no one else is going to do it for us. I mean, it's important to know about this, because, I mean, take Kodak, for example. They were the first ones with a digital camera, but they never managed to take this leap into the digital domain. What if they would have understood exactly what they were getting at in 1976 when this first prototype came out? I mean, it's amazing how they lost that opportunity. But it also has a lot to do with timing, of course. I mean, today, the transformation of society, it's of course the mobility, the connectivity, all the information that's at our hands all the time, everywhere. And it doesn't get clearer than this. This is from the inauguration of Pope Benedict in 2005. And then 8 years later, new Pope, same place, Francis. And it's amazing just how we, in these few years, just totally change our behavior when we're actually experiencing something. So, when I'm not here in Malmö, this great venue, I've never been in a bar like this speaking before, but it's amazing. This is an amazing place. And when I don't do things like this, I usually spend most of my time working with very early stage technology startups, physics-based, nanotechnology, semiconductors, things like that. And I just realized that it's always hard to look into the future and trying to understand where we're heading, what is happening. And it's part of what I do when I'm not working with my investments is I'm part of TechCast, this Washington, D.C. think tank. We're roughly 100 people around the world that's trying to understand what new technologies are coming, when they will see some kind of mainstream adoption, and also how that will affect us. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples on technologies that I see. You've probably seen some of these before, but we'll try to put them into business context. Of course, some of you might remember that IBM beat Garry Kasparov in chess in 1997, became the world champion. And that was really impressive. That was nothing compared to what IBM did a couple of years ago, in 2011, when they beat the two world champions in Jeopardy. And not only was that an impressive computation setup that they really got going in this competition, they also managed to, in milliseconds, scan 200 million pages of information and trying to come up with an answer or a question as in Jeopardy in this short time, and doing it faster than the humans. And they managed, as you see. And I met with the Watson management team here a couple of months ago, and they actually said that since this happened in 4 years, the whole system has been improved 100-fold. So it's 100 times faster today than it was 4 years ago. And it's just amazing from a business perspective what we're going to see happening in the future. I mean, today machine learning, algorithms, early versions of artificial intelligence, it's a competitive edge if you have it today. In a couple of years' time, it will be a pure necessity for anyone that wants to compete. So, for example, for the job market, we're going to see a lot of change there. I mean, as you said there, we don't know what kind of work is going to be needed in the future. But be sure that it's going to be creativity, social interaction, empathy, all these things that robots can't copy right now. Those things are going to be essential for anyone that's going to be successful or work with something interesting in the future. Anything that a computer can't copy. And it's not only, as it used to be, like manual labor, but also repetitive cognitive labor that will change this. And I, for one, is really happy to see this, because working as an investor, you always tend to spend too much time with lawyers, bankers, accountants. All those things are going to go away. So I'm just looking forward to that, really. So anyway, robots. I mean, you heard the previous session on robots. I mean, robots have been around for 100 years in popular culture. Industrial robots, of course, we have. But now we start seeing robots that can actually walk like a human. Impressive from an engineering perspective. Total disaster from a PR perspective. I mean, they put on a gas mask on this girl, hen, if you're in Swedish, trying to make it look less intimidating. But it doesn't work, of course. We have robots that can walk like animals, and I mean, this was an outburst on Facebook when he kicked this cute little robot. You can actually see the smile on his face. And all these things combined, I don't think it's a good idea that we mess with the robots. I don't think we should introduce the concept of violence to robots. I'm a great science fiction fan. And I've seen the Terminator. You don't want that thing to happen. You don't want to go down that path, because you never know what will happen. So, that said, third example, if we look at genomics, DNA. I mean, today you can get almost a full DNA scan for $99. Just order it over the internet, get it back, and you get all the information you need. I mean, what will that mean to the future of business? Insurance companies, for example, all that data that is available for us. And I actually gave this one to my wife as a Christmas gift last year. I thought it was kind of a nice gesture. No one else seems to think it was. I mean, get to know more about that. We're actually celebrating our 15th wedding anniversary today. So I think it's about time to get to know each other better. But after that, she just decided that she's going to buy her own presents in the future. But anyway, it's interesting how these things get closer and closer to reality and into our everyday lives. And we're going to see a lot of things coming out of this, a lot of changes in business models and the way we work, of course. If you want, you can just bury your head in the sand, definitely. But instead, if you see the opportunities, try to see what is possible through new technologies and the changing business models that are actually coming out of this. I think there's a lot of opportunities, but it's all up to you. No one else can decide if you want to grasp these opportunities or just try to stay away from them as long as possible. But they're going to catch up with you. I can promise you that. So for me, When I work looking at new investments, work with my existing companies, I always tend to see this, how do I relate to technology from a business perspective? And I'm going to run you through a very short model here on how I usually try to think when I approach these issues. The first thing is about technology, of course, and timing. Timing is of the essence, really. I've done lots of investments that timing-wise were totally wrong. Some of them we managed to make up for that mistake, but some of them just failed, as it usually is. So with the timing, I think the first, trying to see when a technology reaches a hype, when it first gets on the radar. And then the second part of this is to see when you can expect something to reach an early mainstream adoption. Those are two critical points where some kind of action on your side is probably necessary. And I'll give you 3 examples from my upcoming book, 3 companies. The first, in 2007, a friend of mine called and said he had an idea for a new music startup. I'm a big music fan, just loved it, and they had a great concept, but had a big problem. At that time I was affiliated to a venture capital fund, and had a big problem convincing them that streaming and subscription models in the music industry is the future, not downloading and actually owning your music. So we passed on that investment, unfortunately. Of course, it's Spotify. I saw some t-shirts in the audience here. We passed on that investment. Too bad. Today, what is it? Last official numbers was 75 million users, probably a turnover of more than $2.5 billion this year, and there's a unicorn valuation of $8 billion. And I can tell you that sort of hurts. It's the best example of my anti-portfolio, which is not that good, actually. But anyway, the second step is to look at the business implications. How will this affect my industry, the competition, new entrants? How will my clients react to this new technology? Will their behavior, will their expectations change over time? And also, of course, from an internal perspective, how do we need to change? How can we change based on this technology, improve ourselves? And second example is Swedish tabloid, Expressen. I'm not a big fan of tabloids, but they've done some amazing work lately when it comes to their digital transition. They were founded in 1944 as a counter-reaction to the Nazi and fascist movement that was going all over Europe. First 40 years, they made some really good progress in sales and sales of the magazines, the newspaper. The next 20 years with the oil crisis and global recession, even now at a bit more than 500,000 copies a day. And then, of course, we had the first part of the internet boom, late 1990s. I'm sure some of you were here then. And they got scared, they lost in sales, but realized then around the millennium that, oh, it doesn't look that bad. I mean, you can see here, actually it went back up again. So they downsized their IT department. They let a lot of people go. And that was, of course, a huge mistake, as you see now. Since 2004, it's been a steady downward trend in this. And of course, they have had some enormous challenges catching up to the market and also catching up to the competition. But what's more interesting, I mean, if you look at their web presence and their digital presence, it's looking quite good. They got exponential increase in user activity and all that. I'm coming back to this later. Third, Stephen Wolfram, probably one of the smartest men alive, at least according to himself. Really nice guy. He left Eton, got in when he was 17, 1 year at Oxford, found that really disturbing and not interesting, so he instead got his PhD from Caltech before he was 20. Founded a company in computational analytics, today with Wolfram Research with 700 employees, privately held. It's an amazing business that's very well positioned for the future here. And these three companies, Spotify, Expressen, and Wolfram, they have a lot of things in common how they relate to technology and business transformation. For example, Spotify introduced a whole new business model and new technology to an existing industry. Expressen started out as a print magazine, a print newspaper, but have moved more and more into technology and the digital. They went from 5 to 55 developers in just 2-3 years. And in the past 6 months, they've employed roughly 50 people in their TV department. Wolfram they have a bit of a luxury. They launch products and can wait for the market to understand their greatness. But they are slowly getting into new business models with subscriptions and freemium-based models. So it's slowly their business models are changing as well. Last, you need to sort all these things out. You have a technology, you have the business implications, you have to realize which of them are more important. And if a technology and a business implication is important and urgent, of course you need to act now. If it's important but not that urgent, you need to prepare to take action when the time comes. If it's not important and not urgent, don't leave it behind. You still have to monitor it because things can change. You can see new usage coming out of an existing technology, something that suddenly applies to your industry. Then, of course, if it's urgent, it's happening now, but it's none of your concern, you can sort of leave it behind, but don't forget about it, because things can also happen, and it can happen quite fast nowadays. So, to summarize this, it's all up to you if you want to be part of this technology revolution, if you want to change the way you work, if you want to see the opportunities before anyone else does, of course. And it's all out there, ready for anyone to catch when possible. But if you're not confused, you're not keeping up with this, of course. If you're not curious, you've missed the whole point here, my 15 minutes. But if you're not optimistic, you haven't really been paying attention, so let's talk about that more after, okay? So, thanks. You find me here.
Thank you, Nicklas. Wow, that's like the weather forecast for businesses to come.